Thank you for tuning in to Road Divinity. I'm your host, Lisa Wade, and in this episode, we talk with guest Isobel Gatherer. She is an incredible wealth of practical information about how to work with your angels and also access intuitive wisdom. Isobel offers some incredible insights, like when dealing with challenge, asking the question, where's the love in this? It'll totally shift your perspective. We talk about self-responsibility leading to greater freedom and love. We talk about trusting yourself and your intuition, but also trusting that the universe always has your back, even when you're making pretty dumb mistakes along the way. She says that life is not about perfection, but rather about living and learning and even having some fun. She encourages us to stay out of fear, but to stay focused on our dreams and to ask our angels for help in realizing those dreams. This is a fun conversation, lots of laughter, lots of insight, and I hope that you will enjoy. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Road Divinity. It is my deep honor, complete privilege to have the chance today to talk with Isobel Gatherer. Isobel, I would love for you to share a bit about you with our audience, where you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Isobel Gatherer. Thank you for inviting me, by the way, Lisa. It's brilliant to be on this show. I live in Cornwall in the UK, and I am what you call a spiritual guidance mentor, an intuitive reader, and an energy healer. And I first met you, I don't know how many years ago now, I can't even think, probably about 5 years ago, something like that.
Something like that.
And yeah, we've been each other's worlds on and off for quite some time now. So thank you, I say, for inviting me here.
Absolutely. It's such an honor. And I remember, I think it's been actually about 3 years ago. And the reason I think that is I started gifting myself birthday readings and with you. And I'm one of these that if I get a reading, it's important to me to know that the person that's jumping into my energy and, getting in my field is a really clear vessel and holds a really high integrity in alignment with the light. And that's something I have always felt so much from you and have seen you teach others how to do that as well. And so first of all, thank you for being the kind of person that's just trustworthy, the kind of energetic, reader, guidance, healer that feels good to have within your own energy system instead of, the other. That matters so much. And I just want to say from the very first time we talked, our first conversation was right before my birthday. Well, it was on my birthday 3 years ago. And the reason I remember this is because 2 days ahead of that, I had needed to take my husband at the time to the hospital. And so much of our conversation was around just the challenge that had been happening in the marriage and then him being in the hospital. And I will never forget your words during that time. It was like you were an angel for me during that time in terms of your words being like the calm for my soul. And kind of they kept echoing in my head in a way that helped me navigate a really, really difficult, challenging situation, which included his death, 3 weeks later. But your words helped so much during that time. And I just, first of all, want to say thank you. And the idea of that divinity being able to come through a person for you to share with me what I didn't even know I needed yet, right? Events hadn't unfolded. I didn't know I needed it yet, but you're so clear in your gift. It's like it came through and was exactly what I needed before I knew I needed it. And so just thank you for that. Whew, it was powerful.
Powerful. I remember that now. Now you've said, I remember that. Yeah. I don't remember the words, but I remember the situation. I remember the situation that you went through as well. I remember you telling me, but well, I'm glad I could help. And obviously I'm just the channel for this. I work, directly with the angels and spirit guides and ascended masters. So I'm just literally a transmitter, like a radio receiver. They give me the information and I send it out. So, but I'm really, really pleased it helped you at that
It
difficult
did
time.
amazingly, and in a way that no kind of 3D advice or guidance could have, you know? And so I'm always fascinated. You stand so from the outside world, at least looking in, you stand so confidently and powerfully in your truth and in your connection with the divine. And I'm always interested to know, did it start out that way? Have you always been, so clearly connected? Or has it been kind of a circuitous route to own your gifts as fully as you do now?
It's been a very interesting ride. I will say that. I most certainly haven't chosen the easiest lifetime this time around. Um, when I was very young, well, when I was born, I was adopted. I'm not going to go right the way. I'm not going to say every single thing that happened, but I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old, and I was adopted by an amazing couple who were in their 40s when they adopted me. So there's quite a big age gap.
Mhm.
And they passed really quite early. So my father passed when I was 9,
Oh, wow.
and my mother passed when I was 17. Are we okay? Because we've got to do.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, our video is a little
Okay, because
strange,
you
but I can
froze.
hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We're back. So yeah, they passed when I was quite young. But even when I was a little girl, and I can remember it really, really clearly, I was very, very open, as we all are at a young age, to spirit, to other things going on around. I remember having a guide in my bedroom. I was always having nightmares and calling my father in, bless him. But I remember calling him in one night and saying, "Daddy, there's a soldier guarding me." And he said, "No, there isn't, Isobel. There isn't anybody there. It's just a shadow." And I thought, I can see a soldier. And he was almost standing sentry with his head bowed. He had a World War I uniform on, and he had like a bayonet, and he was sort of standing on his, well, he wasn't standing on his bayonet, but he was leaning on his gun or whatever he was leaning on, guarding me. And when my dad said, "No, no, Isobel, there's nobody there," I thought, there is. But that was the moment when I shut down.
Wow.
Because I absolutely adored my dad, and my dad was telling me there was nothing there. It shut me down.
Mhm.
And I remember doing this with my children when they were young, before I was fully open. Again, I remember doing the same thing with them, saying, "No, no, no, there's no such thing there." But there was, they could see it. So I'm guilty of that as well. But anyway, fast forward a few years, and probably when I was when about 17, my mum passed then, and I started to open up again. There started to be these little conversations going around about there must be more to life than this, and if there was a God, this wouldn't happen to me, and started to question things, and started to talk about the meaning of life and all that. So it was starting to come through again. And then I got married, and we went very much down the masculine route, because he was in the Royal Navy, and it was all very matter of fact and rigid, and it wasn't really until I'd had my children that things started to open again. And even then, it was like I was having feelings, I was seeing things, I was hearing things. I've always talked. I thought I was talking to myself. I've always talked to something and got the answers back. So even when I thought I was fully closed down, I was asking, I was talking things through in my head, and I was getting answers coming in. I was getting messages coming in like, "Don't get on that bus," or "Don't go there." And it's so startling that you just didn't do it because you didn't know where it was from. So I was still open, because I'm very clairaudient. So a lot of my messages come in that way. And then it was probably about 1994, just before 1994, I had a reading, the first ever reading I had, and I was terrified of it. I was absolutely terrified about, I didn't really want to know about the future. But this lady during this reading said to me, "You do know you've got a guardian angel looking over you." And but didn't tell me how to connect. You see, most people, if I read for them, I'll go, you've got a guardian angel. It's ever so easy to connect with them. But she didn't. She just said, you've got a guardian angel looking over you. And I thought, oh, isn't that lovely? And then she said, mention my father. And I was really like quite emotional about that. And that's when it started to open again. That's when I really started to think about it. And then, especially when I went out to work on my own. I used to work in the corporate world a lot, you know, most of my life I was in administration. And in 2010, I went into business on my own. And that's when it really started to kick in, because I was out there as a freelance PA, but I was meeting all these amazing coaches, and I was meeting all these amazing spiritual people, because the guides were almost saying, yes, we've got her now, keep putting these people in front of her, and she'll eventually really open up and realize what she can do. So they put about 3 or 4 really spiritual people in front of me. One was too scientific, and I didn't know what to ask, because I thought the language is way out of my league. I don't even know what she's talking about. The other one was completely away with the fairies, who now I absolutely adore, but at the time I just thought, what is she talking about? And then the other lady was very, very down to earth, very level, and that's the woman who actually got me working with angels, because when I spoke to her, it was actually through another client. I was guiding this woman about something, IT or something, and I said, I've just had this massive download, I've never had one before. And she explained what it was, and then said to me, do you work with angels? And I said, no. Would you like to learn to work with angels? I said, okay. So I did a little tiny course with her, and that was it. It all opened up. And the guide, she did a past life regression with me, and the guide that I saw in my bedroom, I was shown I was on a World War I battlefield. He was there, I was standing next to him, and this chaos was playing out in front of me. I was like, oh, I was getting all hot and everything, because I'd never done anything like this before. Chaos, you know, people being blown up, the whole lot. And I just stood next to him watching this. And after this past life regression, he kept coming in every so often when I was like watching TV or something, until I started talking to him. And he told me who I was in World War I. He gave me my name. Wow. And then I went on the World War I records, and I found myself. And I'm then, is it me? Yep. And so everything he told me, I proved it back on the World War I stuff. And from then on, he said, now do you now believe me? Do you now trust me that what you're getting is right? I can't really deny it, can I? But he was the guide. He was in my bedroom all those years before.
Wow.
So
I've got goosebumps all over from that story. That's incredible.
That was my last lifetime.
Your last lifetime before this one. Wow.
Yeah.
One of the things I really appreciate that you just mentioned was the idea that there were 3 different people that you had talked to, and one that you really resonated with at the time. And, you know, so often when I'm doing my work, I might think, you know, there are other people out here who talk about the same things I do, or, you know, who think along the same lines, or whatever. There's maybe no need for me in this talking about these things. It's already covered. But then I have to remember that people resonate with different people differently. And so, like for you, the super scientific didn't work necessarily at the beginning, or the super fairies didn't work right at the beginning, maybe different now, but you had to find the teacher that worked well for you, met you where you were. And that's something that that you seem to do so brilliantly with the clients that you work with too, that there's just a resonance, you know, finding that teacher that resonates beautifully with you. When it comes to the work that you do now, can you tell us a little bit about that? Having just gone through one of your programs, I enjoyed it so much. You know, and it seemed that the others in the class really got so much out of it. When did you start working with clients and like sharing content in that way? And what do you get out of it?
Well, I started it actually a few years ago when I was still living, because, you know, I've traveled around quite a bit lately. And then when I was still living in my old home, it's the way I started actually with the reading. And this is fascinating because, you know, I'm always telling you, I'm going backwards a bit, but I will get there. You know, I'm always saying to you, ask for help and it'll be given. You remember? And I'll ask you guys, if you're worried about anything, ask your guys. Well, I was going through a divorce and the money was just not there. And I was doing the PA work. And this is really when this work kicked in, because I'm saying to the guides, okay, I need to earn some more money. How can you help me? I need this money coming in. What can I do? And I've been using cards and reading for family and friends, but not charging. You could start charging for your readings. And I said, oh no, that means I've got to put myself out there. Start charging for your readings. How much money did you need? I wanted £220. That's all I needed to pay a tax bill. So they said to me, charge £10 and start putting it out. So I think this is about the November. And I said, well, I need the money for the 3rd week of January. So anyway, started advertising this little group I had, this little online group. Some people came to the house, some people did it online, but most of them came to the house. And I kept a record, but I didn't keep a rolling record. So I just wrote their names down and I didn't say what number they were. But by the 3rd week of January, I had read for 22 people at £10 a reading. And it was like, now you're going to do it. So from then on, it just got bigger and bigger. But I used to also do workshops at home. So very much like the one that we've just done, although not as deep, I hasten to add. I used to do 4-week workshops. So they come for 1 week every Wednesday for 4 weeks, and we do hands-on stuff. We do the healing, we'd learn to use the crystals and the work about chakras and stuff. And basically I was winging it in those days, because I was actually reading up the day before and that just basically winging it. But I know that happened with me. So that's where it started. And then I went on the road. So I did some healing as well, but then I went on the road. And so that's really when the business took off, because I wasn't looking locally for clients. I was looking worldwide for people. And the more I opened up to receiving, the more the work came through. And so now I work with people from all over the world. And I just sit in my little room and I read for them. I do the readings mainly. That's spiritual guidance readings. They're like psychic readings, but obviously I've got the guides talking to me. But then I also do small programs like we've just done. And I absolutely love it, because part of what we do, and you know this as well, is we need to take responsibility for our own selves. And we could come to you week after week after week after week and have a reading. And it's great because you can give them the information that's coming through for them, but they're not taking necessarily self-responsibility of their own lives. But when you're teaching this stuff, you're actually encouraging them to start to work with their soul, to start to work with their higher self, to start to work with the guides who are around them. And that's actually enlightening them and helping them on their own spiritual journey. You're not doing it all for them. You're showing them how to do it, and you're encouraging them to do it even more. And I've really enjoyed doing that. I love working one-to-one with clients and helping them to clear things that are holding them back, but also to take self-responsibility and to get their work out into the world. So I love seeing them transform and grow and start to get their stuff out there and other people working with them. And I think that's where I get the most satisfaction from it all, to see that I've helped them in a small way to get their stuff out into this massive world of ours. So I don't know if I've answered your question. I've just gone all around the houses.
Perfect. Brilliant. And there's such a distinction to me in the energy of someone who shares information, but almost in a way that tethers a person to them to keep coming back for more, because they don't feel like they have the skills or the possibility of doing on their own, versus people like you, and it's how I strive to be too, in terms of empowering other people, helping them learn the tools and the skills and develop the confidence and the will to actually do the work. Because that's what it all boils down to. You can have all the skills and information and tools in the world, but if you're not willing to implement them and actually do the work for yourself and take that responsibility, our heads get constipated with a whole bunch of knowledge that we're not gaining the benefit from. So thank you for that perspective.
Yeah. And the self-responsibility actually leads to freedom, and it actually leads to love, because that's our growth. Um, and sometimes people do come for readings, on a regular basis, and it might just be that they need that at that particular time.
Mhm.
But I still encourage them to take action and take responsibility. And actually, I've turned some people away who've not done that, because they're basically wasting my time and they're wasting theirs. So I have actually turned, because I just thought, I keep telling you the same thing and you're not actioning it. So you're wasting time, That sounds really harsh, doesn't it? But
No, but it's true. One of the things that I've appreciated about when you've read for me, for example, when we've had sessions, is that you help me see like a version of myself that I have a chance to grow into, and recognizing that it will take courage and
yeah,
a lot of work, or at least y- a willingness to work with my angelic team to get there. But it's like you help me see possibilities for myself, that when I'm stuck, just hanging out in my little 3D world, that might seem really far field. Like, oh, I could never
yeah,
do that, or I could never be that. And you help me remember the power of my soul,
yeah,
and how much wisdom and power we hold internally, that
yeah,
sometimes it just takes somebody holding that mirror or being the mirror to go, oh yeah, what am I scared about? Let's go do
yeah,
this. So
yeah,
that
yeah.
that's such a gift that you give.
I have to remind myself about that every now and again. Just go into soul, Isabel, it's soul, and ask. And it is, you go in there, everything is there for you. You've
Mhm.
got to be open to receive it and open to listen to it. And again, open to take those steps. But you can move yourself out of anything. We've got that amazing ability to be able to overcome anything if we're prepared to do the work. And when we say work, sometimes that scares the living daylights out of people, but it actually is, on the whole, the spiritual journey is actually quite joyous. We
Mhm.
do have our moments when it can be a bit tough, but then that's our lessons as well. And it's, what am I learning from this? What am I taking from this? How can I become a better person from this? And as long as we keep asking those questions, and where is the love in this? Thank you, that's the guides. Where is the love in this? As long as we're asking those questions and continuing to move, we can create whatever we want to create.
Mm.
It's we've got everything there. We've come in with all of these gifts there. For every one of us has got something inside to
Mm.
help us to navigate this life on this three-dimensional planet. It's just we don't we? We get reliant. We get expecting everybody else to do it for us.
Mhm.
But
And I
yeah,
love what just happened right here, and I love it when talking with you when this happens. So sometimes people think that if you're not sitting cross-legged, chanting Om on a mountaintop somewhere with a candle lit, and a crystal in your hand, that divine inspiration or wisdom doesn't come. That all these parameters have to be just so to get the messages. But as we were talking just then, you look to the side, you go, "Oh yes, thank you," and then you shared, where's the love in this? Because that's what was popping in,
okay.
that was coming from them at the time. And that's such an opportunity for everyone, I think, is to develop that kind of rapport and receptivity with the guides, that okay, and then in everyday conversations, there's the nugget of inspiration that's helpful.
Yeah.
How did you develop that trust and that kind of discernment to know what's coming from your guides, what isn't, to know that you're
Yeah,
not crazy? Because that's another thing I hear so many
that's
people
the other thing
saying
I was
when
about
they
to say. People think they're crazy because they've got these voices in their head. So straight away you think you're crazy. Actually, you're not. You are a spiritual ball of energy, living in a ball of energy world in a physical body. So why shouldn't you be receiving these things? I mean, we're going, oh, I've got voices in my head. Switch it off. Switch it off. But no, they're trying to help you. They're trying to guide you. And you do have a choice. You don't have to take, if you prefer not to take the guidance, then don't take it. They won't get cross with you.
Mhm.
It's your choice. So you've still got that ability, that control. Sorry, we're off on one now, aren't we? How did I trust it? Well, one of the things, as I say, was those readings, when the readings started to happen. And then the more I start, instead of looking at the cards and trying to fathom out what the cards said, I listened to my intuition and I listened to what the guides were saying. And then the readings became more authentic, they were less labored. And people were like, whoa, how did you know that? You know, how did you know that? And in fact, one lady a few months ago said to me, have you been looking at my Instagram program? And I said, no, not at all. She said, because everything you were telling me I've seen on there. And I honest to God don't look. I really don't, because I don't want to be accused of looking. So, and actually I haven't got the time, you know, and I trust my guides to get me the information that I need for everybody. So yeah, it's trust again. I'm always on about trust on programs, aren't I? Trusting and believing and trusting in yourself as well. So when you said, how do you know if it's the right energy in with you? When you start to work, if you start to work with angels, and I hope you do, those people who are listening, you ask who, you first of all start with your guardian angel, and you get used to working with your guardian angel. Your guardian angel's been with you all your life anyway, and in between, and each life you've reincarnated, that same angel's always been with you. So it's no surprise when you feel them. It just feels very safe and nurturing and loving and caring, because they are. But we have to ask them to work with us. So you start to work with your guardian angel, you start to practice, you start to understand how the messages are going to come through for you. Some people feel them, some people see them, some people hear them like I do, some people just know them. So you're intuitive. And you get used to working with them, and then you bring in another angel, and you get to feel the energy. You know, this feels good. And angels always come from a place of love. There's never any sarcasm. There's never any, I mean, they can be funny. I mean, mine are really funny, but there's no sarcasm there. There's no nastiness there. And if there's anything like that coming through, you ask, actually, who's in with me? You know, are you of the light? Are you of the highest light? Are you angels? And you ask 3 times. And the 3rd time, if you get a no, then you just ask that body to leave. As you know, I'm a firm believer of having your team behind you as well. So this all develops, but then you get your bouncer on the door, you get your gatekeeper, as I call them, and your gatekeeper will keep out anything that's not meant to be in. So you trust, but sometimes I feel something that's not quite right, and I'll just ask who it is and just say, I just need you to leave. I don't want you in on this. But the more you do it, the more you trust, the more you know who's there. So it's practice. It's like with anything, it's practice. It's like going to the gym. The more you practice, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, thank you. When people are working with you, and when you're trying to encourage others to recognize and own their gifts, what have you noticed are some of the challenges, like the most common challenges people, or excuses, that people bring up in terms of feeling disempowered to do that?
Yeah, they don't trust themselves enough to be able to do it. They think they've got to see everything. They're frightened of seeing spirit, for one thing. And a lot of it's limiting beliefs that come through. A lot of limiting beliefs are following us through from past lives, where probably we've been killed for our beliefs or our gifts. Yeah. They're coming through a lot at the moment for people and rising up, and that takes a bit of clearing. But most of us have been there, because we've agreed this time to come back and sort the blooming world out. So there's that. There's actually the belief and the trust, and they're terrified of getting things wrong. Mm-hmm. They're frightened of making mistakes. But like everything in life, when you make a mistake, you learn from it. As long as you learn from it and go, what could I have done better? You know, what could I have taken from this? And what can I take from this? How can I do things better? But it's practice again. But they're frightened of making mistakes. They're frightened of getting it wrong. The other thing to remember is the universe has always got your back. Yeah. So it's the angels. So if you make a mistake, just ask for help to get me out of this. I've made mistakes all over and asked the angels to get me out of things. I'm always making mistakes. Not so much on the spiritual level, but on the human level, I'm making stupid mistakes. My intuition's telling me don't do it, and I go and do it. And it's like, oh no, I've done it again. Angels, and they come and help me. I'm always doing it.
I thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you for mentioning that because we can be spiritually motivated people who have these incredible, relationships with the divine and allow that divine guidance to come through in how we live our lives. But ultimately, we're still human. And and part of the human condition is sometimes things are just going to suck, and sometimes we're going to screw up. That's
Yeah,
just kind of given.
yeah.
And you know, sometimes I'll speak for myself. I put undue pressure on myself that things have to look a certain way or I have to get it right, all the time if I think that I'm on a spiritual path. And then when I step back and go, oh, but what fun would that be? Where would the growth be in that? Because you're right. It's through things
Yeah.
not going as we had planned or through the wobbles or whatever that the growth comes, strength through struggle or whatever the saying is. So thank you for helping us remember that this isn't about perfection.
It's not about perfection. And in fact, if there's somebody there who's perfect and they're your teacher, then actually it's about learning you. It's about, thank you. It's about the tapestry of life. It's about this life experience that we're having. And on the front, it might look lovely, but there's always going to be wonky stitches. And on the back, my God, there'll be knots and frays and all sorts because you've actually had a life because you didn't want it. You knew it couldn't be perfect because if you're perfect, you don't do anything.
Mm,
Okay, because you're in fear of getting it wrong. It's about living it. It's about living a lovely, as best life you can possibly live, coming from a place of love, but there's always going to be judgment there. There's always going to be some little thing going like this for you. That's learning. It's learning all the way through and just enjoying it. And if we, putting something out to the world and thinking it wasn't perfect, but somebody will resonate with it. Somebody will think, oh, I love that Lisa because she's always laughing, or that Isabel's always swearing, or whatever. And they're just like, they're
yeah.
normal people, but on this beautiful path. And I think that's a lot to do with it. When you're actually making little mistakes, people love it, don't they? Because they think, oh, she's so much like me.
Well, and I think that there's something real to that perfection almost puts people off because they can't see
Yeah,
themselves in it. And that when we admit to being human and all the imperfection that goes along with that, it actually makes us real, regardless of what path we're in. Um,
yeah,
but there's a vulnerability in that rather than thinking we have to cover up and hide our imperfections, just being vulnerable enough to own them and to know that
yeah.
somebody else is going to actually benefit in a positive way from us owning our own imperfections.
Yeah, and talking about them as well, and make them into a story, make them into a, a funny story or whatever, or a serious story. But people are actually going to resonate with you because you've not read the manual and just spouting from the manual. You've actually had a life, or you're having a life with, like you say, all the imperfections and the things that go on. But you're using your gifts that you've got and your techniques that you've got to get you through it
Mhm.
as well.
Mm,
So that,
yeah.
especially in this day and age where there's all this fear going on, I don't like talking about the fear because it's giving it energy, but
Yeah.
there is, but when you understand what's going on out there, and you realize the importance of this is to raise this vibration, to keep it as high as you possibly can, because then you don't get into that place of fear and they can't control you. So use your tools to get you up there and move you forward, and just accept the funny things that happen, and also the hard things that happen, because we are in a human body having a human experience, and that comes as well as the fun. We're going to have the sadness, we're going to have the grief, we're going to have the upset, but as long as we can balance it out and bring the other aspects in as well, we're going to have a really lovely, well-rounded life. No matter what's happened in the past, you can still change it round to live a good life now.
Mm.
And it's not always been holier than now, because I'm certainly not holier than now, you know, just enjoy life.
Hallelujah. Thank
Hallelujah.
goodness on that front. Life would be so less fun, in
I
my opinion,
know.
if we were all holier than thou. Um, what difference have you noticed or have you thought about the difference in how your life feels? So just how it feels from before you really engaged in the path. I think you said maybe 2010, something like that. and now. Um,
Yeah.
how's it
Abundant.
different? Yeah.
Abundant. Um, I'm far more open. I've done a lot of work on my soul. So my soul doesn't feel tight. It feels open. It feels ready to receive. I know how to call the energy in. I know how to bring abundance in. And I don't just mean money. I mean joy and laughter and fun. I feel free.
Oof.
And I think, to me, freedom and love are the two most important words. Freedom to me is so, so important. And back in 2010, I felt stifled. I felt tight. I felt I haven't been in my soul since I don't know when, and I didn't know what was in there. And it felt really sort of closed down and couldn't let love in. I did let love in, but it was always like a bit more on the insubstantial love, if that makes sense. It was all very much flippant and whatever. It wasn't true love. And I've learned to love myself. Still work in progress, but I've learned to love myself. And I know that anything I set my mind to now and anything I set my energy to, I can bring in. And so there's not this fear of where's the next meal coming from, or where's the next food money coming from. I just know it's going to happen because I trust it. I trust the process.
Perfect.
And yeah, and the most important word there, as I said, is freedom for me, because that's really paramount. I'm a number 5 in numerology, so freedom's always been a big thing.
Yep.
And yeah, I feel that everything is possible. I don't fear death. I just need to say that I don't fear death. It's all part of the cycle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So to answer that question.
That's perfect. So worth the journey. I mean, if you think about the things that you can do in your own life that create a sense of freedom, abundance, and love, and feeling like you're supported and held, that you can have that trust and faith that it's all working out. Um,
Yeah.
what a gift to give yourself.
Yeah. And we can all do that. We can all do it.
Yeah.
We've all got everything there in place. We need to trust again, and don't get caught up in the narrative that's going on. Try and rise yourself above that. Check in. Thank you. They're off again. Check in every day. How am I feeling? When you wake up, how am I feeling today? And if you're feeling low, why am I feeling like this? Check in. Ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What can I do to make myself feel better? And you can just sometimes raise your vibration just by dancing around or moving or putting your favorite music on, and notice a difference about when you've done that to how you were feeling when you first got up. Sometimes there are serious things going on. You've got to, acknowledge them and work with them. But a lot of it as well is gratitude and thankfulness for what we have actually got, because there's always going to be, and this can really annoy people as well, the gratitude and thankfulness can really annoy you when you don't think you've got anything. Because believe you me, I've been there, but there's always something to be thankful for. Mm-hmm. Even if you just get outside and breathe in the fresh air, or you go and you walk and you hear a bird, or you see a flower popping through the pavement, the sidewalk, there's beauty there. There's always something to be grateful for. So it might be the smallest bit, but if you can find that every day, and as you go to bed, you don't have to write them down in a gratitude diary. You can just say thank you as you go to bed, is what I do. Thank you for a lovely day. And thank you for this, that, and the other that's happened. And that's gratitude, isn't it? Mm. And it's also this, trying to have an abundant mindset as well. Because again, this is very much like going to the gym. And when I'm saying about abundance, I don't just mean the money that's coming in, I mean what you've got around you, a loving family, nice friends, good house, good place you live, whatever it is, or food on the table, or good health, whatever it is, you just be grateful and thankful for what you've got, because that brings more abundance in, more things to be grateful and thankful. It's energy, isn't it? We all know.
Yep, all energy. And when we focus on the things we don't want, that'll bring more of that in too. And I think that's one of the things when people finally begin to understand that correlation and that they have that much control over, what they're experiencing, and the
Mm.
chance to focus on the good. I used to teach college classes inside a men and women's prison in Oklahoma. And when I would teach the classes, so much of my classes, regardless of the topic, I would bring in some energy concepts, just to see how they would make a difference in their lives. And one of the things we would do is start the day with, or start the class with what I just called new and good. Tell us something new or something good that's happened since our last class. And it's so funny because the first time I did this, one of the students looked at me and he said, "You realize we're in prison. There ain't a damn good thing happening in here." And I thought, well, let's work with this. But what was fascinating is that one simple practice over the course of a 16-week semester, attitude shifted. What
Yeah.
people started to recognize around them shifted. The good that was flowing in shifted. One gal hadn't had a visitor or a letter from anyone other than Jesus, because some churches will write letters from Jesus to the prisoners. And she hadn't had a letter from anyone other than Jesus in 17 years. She started with this, and all of a sudden, she gets a letter from a family
Oh,
member.
wow.
She
Oh,
it has,
wow.
I mean, just little things like that seemed little, might seem little to us, but for her, that was huge. And
Mm.
so just watching the shift of a little bit of awareness and a little bit of gratitude. The other thing was that sharing it was like the students in the class started rooting for each other, like being supportive and rooting for each other. So there was something about community building even within
Yeah.
that in a positive way. And if I ever doubted the power of just the recognition and the gratitude, bringing it into a prison and seeing it work, I'm like, I can't doubt anymore. I just can't doubt.
Thanks, guys. I've got that one.
Yeah, and if they can find something to be grateful
Yeah.
for, then
Yeah.
any of the rest of us out here can find something,
Yeah.
something. So thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning that.
You're welcome.
Uh,
Yeah.
good,
But I also want to just add for anybody who's listening, thinking, oh, she's okay because she's got an abundant life. I also want you to know that there was times in my life when I was so low and so desperate and so anxious, and and it's gone through, obviously when I was younger and lost my parents, but also when my first husband was at war, again when I had my children, because I ended up being a single parent with 3 kids under the age of 5, one of whom is disabled. So, I had postnatal depression, but I had it when they were 3. So lots and lots of stuff has happened to me. It's not like I've lived a privileged life whatsoever. So I don't want people to think, no, it's okay for her because she's got a great life. I've actually made this life great by trusting and by listening and by being grateful and by doing the inner work. I've made this life great because there was times when it was far from great. The last one was 2016 when I lost my house through a divorce, which I'd had since 1988. So, I've tested it, it works. I've tested it out and it works. And now, because I've done this work and I trust and I believe, and I feel I'm on my life purpose, so I'm helping other people to get their life purpose out into the world and help them to have a happy and abundant life. It's working because I feel now at the moment that this is it, it feels so happy, so contented, free, and it's just bliss, but it's taken work, so anybody who's thinking it's all very well her saying this, you can turn things around as well.
Thank you.
Same as you've had things, haven't you, Lisa? So you've turned your life around time and time again. We just do. When we're teaching, often we've had experiences. If we haven't had experiences, I often say, how can you actually be authentic with your clients if you haven't had experiences?
Absolutely.
It's not from a textbook. A lot of it's from intuitive and wisdom, and that's gained from experience and gained from our own life experiences, but also gained from centuries of stuff coming through. So yeah, don't no matter how low you're feeling, don't lose faith, because there's always a way out. There is always a way out. And the first thing, if you're feeling low, is to ask your guides for help. Ask your guardian angel to come in and ask your guardian angel to help you, and be willing to accept help as well. Thank you. That's a big one. Be willing to accept help when it comes in, because they will start to show you opportunities. We have to ask our angels to help us, because that's the law, the angelic law. They can't just step in. So we ask them, and as soon as you ask them, they will start working on your behalf. Some things will come flooding in straight away, others will take a bit longer, but they will be helping you. Keep the dialogue open with them. Doesn't matter how many times you ask them. Some people say you can't ask more than once. You can ask as many times as you flipping well need to, because they understand that you're human and they will help. But also be willing to take the opportunities when they come. And that, again, is your growth. You're not having it all handed. Some things will be handed to you straight away. Some things you'll have to work at. But the things you have to work at, remember that's part of your growth, and that's going to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. And never, ever, ever stop dreaming about where you want to be. Because when you've got a dream in your head, you're putting that energy into motion. Don't lose faith in your dreams.
Whew. Goosebumps again. Thank you. I needed that reminder. Thank you so much. You know, I can certainly vouch for the power of working with you. And I know that you've got incredibly satisfied clients all over the world. But if others who are listening or watching might be interested in getting some of that Isobel magic in their own life, or learning from you, because you have so much to teach, how can people find you?
So the best way to find me is to go to my website, which is www.isobelgatherer.com. And there's links on there to either book a reading if you want to book a reading, or if you just want to join my newsletter, there's a link there to join the newsletter. So you get regular emails from me. And also there is a link there to an angelic healing, especially for empaths. So there's a lot of empaths out there in the world at the moment who don't even realize who they are, but are struggling, especially with the heavy energies that we're living in. So this healing will help you with that. So that's for free. You will go onto my mailing list unless you decide to opt out, and it's entirely up to you if you want to unsubscribe. And the other way to find me is I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't do a great deal on LinkedIn. But if you go to Instagram, it's Isobel Gatherer on Instagram. Perfect. So yeah, come and have a look and see what you think. And there's some freebies there in my bio. There's a link and there's some freebies you can download.
Excellent. Well, I'll put all the different handles and ways to reach you, the links in the show notes. But one thing I do want to say, I've subscribed to hundreds, if not more, of newsletters over the past 10 years, 20 years. And I always look forward to getting yours in my inbox, because when I click on it, it just makes me feel good. It feels like there's maybe some energetic that goes along with the emails that just feels good. But I always learn something. There's always something in there that's uplifting or inspiring or makes me curious, or there's something in it. So the content is really, really good. Sometimes I get frustrated when I have to, join a mailing list to get a freebie, from other people or whatever. But yours I so enjoy. So thank you. Yeah, for paying attention to the
I channel most of them. Because I can't. I think, what are we going to write about today? And it's like, right. So we channel a lot of it. Don't always, but I do often channel. So because I find it hard sometimes to be inspiring, especially where we are at the moment in the world. And I'm like, guys, what we're going to write about? Get your pen, and I'm writing it down, and then I just put it on in the newsletter. So yes, it's often channeled. Or it's often, if I've gone through something that week, I'll talk about that and what I've learned from it. So there's usually an experience there as well. But thank you, Lisa, for that. It makes me feel so much better to know that somebody's
it's good, and such a continued recognition. We don't have to go it alone, that we've got this entire team that is there wanting, just waiting for us to ask for their help. And when we're willing to lean into that and to ask and to actually receive that kind of guidance, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
just brilliant.
And you don't have people to. And the other thing is, people worry about them being judged. Oh, they're going to know I'm talking to the angels. They're going to think I'm bonkers or crazy or whatever. They don't know unless you tell them. So don't tell them. You haven't got something written on your head. I talk to angels.
Yeah.
They don't need to know, but they will be curious when your life starts to get better, and when you're dealing with situations better, and when you're not getting stressed out. Thank you for that reminder. They just reminded me of something else. People are going to wonder what's going on. They're going to see the change, and it's going to be a positive change because your outlook to life will change.
Mm-hmm.
I've just got, remember to hand your worries over, because one of the things, thank you, one of the things that we are really bad at as humans is worrying.
Mm.
And worrying is one of the most negative energies we can ever have. It doesn't solve a thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you the solution. It doesn't give you the way forward. It doesn't help you. If anything, it hinders you. It turns from a little niggly, oh, that might not work, to a great big going around in your head anxiety thing going around, confusion, chaos, all going around, caused by worry. So if you're worrying, ask your guardian angel to take your worries away and show you a solution, because the solutions are the things that you want, not the worry. And I found whenever I'm worried, angels, please can you take this away from me and show me a solution? And they do. Please and thank yous as well. That's really important with angels, please and thank yous. But they do, they'll send you in a solution. And when you get something coming in, just say thank you. Thank you so much for looking out for me. Thank you, angels. I appreciate that. Don't have to say it out loud. You can say it in your head. But they then know that you're grateful and thankful. Because why wouldn't we, when they just presented you with a solution to the problem that's been going around your head for goodness knows how long. So there you go. It's a simple way of working.
Wonderful reminder. I so appreciate your time and your willingness to share so much insight and wisdom, and share just you working with your guides as we're having this conversation. It can happen just that easily. It doesn't we don't have to make it hard. We don't have to make it hard. Before we close, is there anything else that you would like to add or encourage?
Don't get into that fear state. Don't get in there. Stay as bright and uplift as you possibly can. Some days you will be low, some days you'll be high, but try and stay above that layer of fear, because even the fact of, and I'm sure Lisa teaches this, manifesting. When you know how to work with energy, you can bring anything you want into your life. And that includes food on your table.
Yeah.
Don't let this fear take a hold, because we're better than this. When we rise, we bring other people with us. And when we're all on this higher vibration, fear won't stand a chance. So we can do this. We can do this.
That makes it so much easier to remember the question, where is the love in this?
Yes.
We're not playing
exactly.
in the fear. Where is the love in this becomes so much more clear. So
what can I do? How can I, again, angels, take this fear away from me. Let's take this worry away from me and show me a solution. And you might just get a word in your head. You might not even hear it and see it, but you might open a book and there'll be a word in the book that resonates with you. You might turn on the radio and there'll be a tune on the radio that resonates with you. You might see a billboard with a name or a word on there. As we know, a lot of the people in the group we've just been working with keep seeing numbers. Yeah. You will get the messages, they will get the messages through to you in a way that you will understand. And when you see them, don't just think, oh, that's just a coincidence. There's no such thing as a coincidence. There's synchronicities, there's messages, and just trust it and go with it. And if you're not sure, just say, is that for me? Yep, that's for you. Just keep on believing, lift your vibration, and we can overcome this. People are frightened of, they're out of power. How are we going to do this? But I feel like I need to do something in the world and I don't know what to do. The first thing you can do is believe in your own gifts and get those and bring yourself out of this situation, because they can't stop us doing that.
Amen.
Amen to that one.
Trust
Have
in
I
yourself.
preached? I've preached enough, yes.
Believe in yourself. Trust your power, ask for help, be willing to receive it, and know that when you're living from this place of love rather than a place of fear, not only does life feel better, but it's a blessing to the entire planet and to everyone around you too. So thank you for being a blessing to the planet and to those that you work with. I when I have an opportunity to at least meet virtually. I can't wait for the day that I get to give you a hug in person in real life. Um, but when you have the
Yeah,
opportunity to meet with people that you can just feel are conduits of divine energy, have that ability to connect with the angels, with the divine realm, and bring that energy through to the benefit of others. I think that that is such a blessing and such a display of grace in this world. And so thank you for being that person, for having such high integrity in the work that you do, and for making it accessible and real for
and
everyone.
thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing as well, because you're doing amazing, amazing, amazing work. Um, yeah, and all we want you lot is to is just to do it
Yeah, just
and bring joy to our hearts as
yeah,
well. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, for everyone who's listening or watching today, I thank you so much for tuning in. And genuinely, if you're in the market for an intuitive reading, I highly recommend you reach out to Isobel. Her readings are amazing and incredible. Her teachings are incredibly empowering and inspiring as well. I've appreciated our time today, and I look forward to connecting with everyone next week during the next episode of Dirt Road Divinity. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Dirt Road Divinity. If you'd like to connect in between podcasts, please go over to Facebook or Instagram and follow us at Dirt Road Divinity. If you've got show or guest ideas or comments, feel free to email me directly at lisa@dirtroaddivinity.com. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do that and go ahead and like the video or leave a comment. That actually helps other people connect